For a long time, the F-22 Raptor felt like a finished story. It first flew in the 1990s. Production ended years ago, and from the outside, almost nothing about it seems to change. But the truth is, the F-22 isn't being replaced yet. It's being quietly upgraded in ways that actually change how it fights. And no, this isn't a brand new fighter, and it isn't suddenly turning into a sixth-generation jet. But it is becoming a very different Raptor than it was just a few years ago. One of the most important upgrades happening to the F-22 isn't about weapons at all. It's about how the jet detects danger. According to US Air Force officials and recent reporting from outlets like Air and Space Forces magazine and The War Zone, the F-22 is being upgraded with a new generation of infrared-based defensive sensing and missile warning capability as part of its current modernization effort. In simple terms, the jet is getting better at spotting missile launches and other threats passively, without relying on its radar to do it. That matters, because modern air combat isn't just about who has the best radar anymore. More and more threats, especially advanced surface-to-air missiles and long-range air-to-air weapons, can be detected and tracked without emitting energy at all. So instead of lighting up the sky with its own emissions, the Raptor is being upgraded with improved passive sensors and threat warning systems that allow it to quietly watch its surroundings and react faster when something launches toward it. It may seem like a subtle change, but in a high-end fight, being able to detect a missile launch a few seconds earlier without giving away your position can be the difference between surviving the engagement or never knowing what hit you. Now, here's where the upgrade becomes much more than a new sensor. On paper, one of the biggest changes coming to the F-22 sounds almost boring. It's computing power. But in reality, this is one of the most important modernization steps the jet has received since it entered service. As part of the Air Force's ongoing modernization effort, the Raptor is receiving updated mission systems, software, and onboard computing to support newer sensors and future capabilities. Modern air combat runs on information. Today's sensors generate far more tracks and signals than the F-22 was originally designed to handle, and without faster processing and better software, a pilot can't fully use any of it. So these upgrades aren't about making the F-22 fly faster. They're about helping the jet collect, fuse, and understand more information, and turn that data into decisions before an opponent can react. And in a high-end fight, decision speed is just as important as raw performance. And that leads directly to what may be the single most important operational change. When the F-22 was originally designed, it was built to fight largely on its own. It could see a lot. It could track a lot. But for years, it could only share a limited amount of that information outside a very specialized and restricted network. That was a deliberate design decision at the time. But modern air warfare no longer works that way. Today, the advantage comes from how quickly information can move between aircraft, sensors, and command systems. So, one of the quiet but critical upgrades is improving how it exchanges data with other platforms and battle management networks. Something Air Force leaders have repeatedly highlighted as a priority for keeping the Raptor relevant in future conflicts. The goal is simple. If the Raptor detects a threat, a target, or a sudden change in the battle space, that information should not stay trapped inside one cockpit. It should move immediately to the rest of the force. This removes one of the Raptor's long-standing operational constraints. Instead of operating as a nearly invisible, information-isolated hunter, it's being reshaped to fight as part of a connected, coordinated combat network. And that shift helps explain why the Air Force is still putting serious resources into an aircraft many people assume is already on its way out. Upgrading the F-22 is also driven by a simple reality. The Air Force only has around 180 Raptors in total, and production ended more than a decade ago. There is no way to replace those aircraft in the near term. At the same time, potential adversaries continue to improve their own fighters, sensors, and long-range weapons. So keeping the F-22 credible is not optional. It is necessary. But keeping the F-22 relevant does not mean turning it into the Air Force's next-generation fighter. The Air Force's Future Air Dominance program is being built around entirely new platforms, including a next-generation crewed aircraft and uncrewed teammates. The purpose of upgrading the Raptor is different. It's to ensure that a fifth-generation aircraft designed decades ago can still operate effectively inside a future force built around new systems, new sensors, and new ways of fighting. In other words, this is not about keeping the F-22 on top. It is about making sure it can still contribute when the next generation arrives. So, the most important takeaway from this modernization effort is not a single sensor, weapon, or hardware change. It is a shift in how air dominance itself is being defined. Winning in the air is no longer just about which aircraft can fly faster, higher, or turn harder. It is about who can build the clearest picture of the battle space and move that understanding to the right people and platforms fast enough to matter. The F-22 was built to dominate the sky on its own. Now, it is being reshaped to help the entire force fight with a shared understanding of what is happening in the air. In conclusion, the Raptor isn't being reinvented, but it is being quietly transformed. And in a future defined by contested airspace, dense sensor networks, and rapidly evolving threats, that transformation may prove just as important as any brand new fighter that comes after it. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into modern military aviation and air combat technology. And let me know in the comments, do you think upgrading aircraft like the F-22 is the right approach? Or should the focus be entirely on building the next generation instead?